I'm Caroline Modarressy-Tehrani and you're watching WMN on HuffPost Live. Now, what's it like to be a woman in 2014? Well, the last few weeks have shown that it isn't a picnic. From Janae Palmer's courageous but galling testimony to catcalling videos that showed the world how even in the most public of spaces, the female body is not off limits to aggressions, and then to the online world of Gamergate, where women are subject to smear campaigns and outright vitriol. It isn't fun. But there are women working to take back these spaces, and one is Alanah Pearce. She's a video game reviewer based in Australia, and she joins us now. So hi, Alanah, great to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, so now you've taken back the video game sphere in a way that this headline sums up pretty amazingly. The perfect way to deal with rape threat trolls? Tell their mums. Sorry, let's rewind for a second. So why were you receiving rape threats in the first place?
I have no idea. People keep asking me that question like there should be a good response to it, but I honestly have absolutely no idea. They seem to just sort of come out of nowhere, and I started getting them about 3 years ago, which is basically when I started reviewing video games in the public eye.
So you were reviewing video games, and then all of a sudden these threats started to come out of nowhere. I mean, what were some of the worst things that you've been called, the worst things you've been threatened with?
Things that I wouldn't want to repeat.
This is HuffPost Live, so you can pretty much say what you want. This is HuffPost Live, so go for it. Don't hold back.
I'm uncomfortable reading some of it, so I wouldn't even want to say it. I got one maybe 2 days ago that was a rape threat that had very descriptive language relating to cactuses in it, and that was horrible to read. So I get some really, really nasty descriptive stuff that I totally don't even want to think about saying. It's just so awful.
And I can totally understand why you wouldn't even want to, Alanah, so don't worry about going there. But, you know, I mean, to be honest, I would say when you were receiving these, I mean, did you ever want to stop what you were doing? Did you ever want to stop reviewing it? I mean, did you start to think to yourself, is it even worth it, given the level of the threats that you've been getting?
I hit that at one point the first time that I started working for a relatively popular website, and I worked so hard on my first video for them. I was working for ages, and I was really, really proud of it. And then the entire comment section was just absolutely just sexism. It was like, why does she have a shirt on? Or I just muted it so that I could watch her, or this video needs more boobs and stuff like that. It was just so dismissive. And at that point in time, I was really, really upset. But I think I realized, you know, if you had told me 5 years ago that I was reviewing games for a living, I probably would have cried. So I'm definitely not going to let anyone kick me out of the industry. I love what I do. It's just an unfortunate downside.
No kidding. And, you know, a downside that should definitely not be even a factor of what you're doing or what any woman is doing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when did you decide, now I've got one of your first tweets about this here. When did you decide to start telling the mums of these offenders? You know, you tweeted out, sometimes young boys on Facebook send me rape threats. So I've started telling their mothers, and you can see the reaction on the right-hand side of the screen. Oh my God, little shit, I'm so sorry. Yes, I will talk to him. And that was in response to a mother finding out that her son had said, I'll rape you if I ever see you, cunt. So walk us through the process of finding these offenders.
I've only been doing it for about 4 months now, and I think that it kind of just got to a point where I was sick of ignoring them. Everyone says to ignore them, and I know that engaging isn't really a viable solution because they actually just want you to react. I don't think that they actually want to rape me. I think they just want me to be uncomfortable. And I got sick of letting them win and just thought, how can I give them real-world consequences for something that they're doing to me online and make them realize that what they're saying is not okay. And then I realized that they're all actually quite young boys just by looking at their profiles. So it was kind of mindless, actually. They messaged me on Facebook. I went to their Facebook profile. Some of them had their mother listed under the family section of their Facebook. Otherwise, she was tagged in profile pictures or had commented on other pictures. So it was actually a really, really easy thing to do. You'd be surprised what details people share on Facebook. And then I just send the mother a message saying, hi, is this your son? Because I don't want to just start out with a screen cap of a disgusting message in case it's not, and then would just say, and I had to be really careful with my wording, would have to say something like, would you be interested in discussing this with him? Because I didn't want to make it seem like it was the mother's fault and I blamed her. I didn't want to make it seem like she had to do anything about it, just maybe that she would consider it.
Absolutely. Well, joining me now, I want to bring in some other voices into this conversation because joining me now are some of the smartest women I know. Dr. Chloe Angel, the co-editor at feministing.com, Katie Halper, a political comedian and a writer, and Rachel Sklar, the co-founder of Change the ratio. So ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. Obviously listening to Alanah, and we're all, as I say, Alanah, you should have seen the faces. Everyone's face was just like agog. Rachel, I mean, what do you make of this story?
I was agog. I was stunned. I remain stunned. I am in awe of your enterprising creativity in finding a solution to this, and brava to you. But I was just so struck hearing it, just at the global nature of the use of the threat of rape and just invoking rape as a way to silence women.
Yeah.
Never mind the actual use of rape to silence women.
That's it. Yeah, Chloe, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's really important to note that this is happening online. A lot of us do our work online and we get a lot of these threats online, but just because it's happening on the interwebs doesn't mean it doesn't have real world consequences. It absolutely does. In the midst of Gamergate, a lot of women have had to leave their homes, have had to, make sure that they are untraceable because the threats have become so severe. And, even for those of us who don't endure stuff quite as severe as what Alanah and people like Anita Sarkeesian are going through at the moment, this has real mental health consequences. I mean, a lot of us ask ourselves all the time, is the work that we do worth enduring this kind of thing? I mean, like Alanah, I think a lot of us feel that the work that we do is a privilege, and we're very lucky to do it. But this is more than an unhappy side effect. This is real life. It might be on the internet, but this is real life.
Well, and you're absolutely right in terms of in the spaces. I mean, this is happening in the online sphere, but then it affects your private sphere, it affects your home sphere, because then you have to leave your home or you have to move. Katie, what do you think about all this?
Well, I actually received my first, quite the badge of honor, but received my first kind of threatening tweet from someone who mentioned my parents' name. First he told me he was going to defecate in my water supply, and then and I'm not comparing this at all to what Alanah went through.
It's still horrible.
It's horrible, yeah.
But
what shocked me was how physically and viscerally fearful I became. Like, if you had told me about that, I would have said, oh, that sounds terrible. I'm really sorry that happened to you. But I wouldn't have thought that I would have felt endangered. And I totally did, because all it takes is finding out, what else does this person know about you and where you live.
Now, that's an interesting point. Alanah, what do you think? I mean, obviously, at a certain point, you must read these and sort of think, okay, on a rational sort of level, you think, okay, this is somebody on the online sphere. I have no idea where they are. Maybe they're in Malaysia. Maybe they're, totally different country. They can't come and physically harm me. But then there are the ones that possibly can. And, how did you process that when you were receiving these kind of threats, Alanah?
I think I've become very desensitized to it, where I learned a long time ago to just step away from the computer and not let it affect me as soon as I am away from the computer. So you've just terrified me, because that's never even occurred to me that could actually happen in real life. I just kind of treat it as an online thing and keep it separate from my real world so that I don't let it affect my mental health, which I think is a really, really important thing.
Well, so lots of people that are watching as well are kind of curious and I think concerned as well about the move from an online to a real life sort of scenario. And Boring File Clerk, who's watching, asks, and says their mums don't need to just talk to them, but they should call the police on them. Alanah, as any of the other mothers or any of the women that you've spoken to as a result of this indicated that they would be taking some kind of, corporal measure against their children?
I've actually only gotten a reply from one, which is the one I tweeted. All of the others seem to have ignored my messages. Unfortunately, there's been 4 people that I've messaged so far. But regarding contacting the police, I mean, a lot of people have suggested this to me, but it would be so exhausting for me to file a police report every single time that someone sends me a message like this. But it's also a factor that a lot of them are minors, and a lot of them are international. Actually, majority of the boys who do this to me seem to be in America for whatever reason. So I think that it's not really a realistic solution, because I can't even imagine police taking it very seriously. If there's someone who's like a repeat offender, and sometimes people do make separate accounts. There was one guy who did it to the extent that I knew the way that he would type. So every single time I would be able to tell that it was him again, just with a different username because of the things that he would say. And that guy I reported to the police, but absolutely nothing came out of that, unfortunately. What I'd really like to see is social media websites themselves taking it a lot more seriously.
That's a great point. Rachel, what do you say to that?
No, I mean, that's a great point. Basically what you're saying here is that the burden is constantly placed on women to do the legwork and follow up and make the complaints and go to the police, as opposed to the social networks being a partner in preventing this type of harassment and making it easy, like having a quick flag. And you know, Women Action Media just launched a campaign making it easier to flag abuse on Twitter. But the amount of work it took in order to get Twitter to take these kinds of things seriously. I mean, institutions tend to try to do nothing for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And
the Australian government, the Australian government announced yesterday, I'm pretty sure, that they're planning on appointing someone to actually take or force social media companies to take this more seriously, which I think is just absolutely amazing. Hopefully there'll be funding going into that so that the government itself can enforce social media websites to do it rather than the police doing it, because, yeah, I don't think that it's reasonable, and it would, honestly, I'd be doing it every single day at the moment. It would just be so tiring for me. I wouldn't be able to get anything done if I was talking to the police all the time.
Well, it's interesting as well that you mentioned Australia, because some argue that one way of combating violence against women is to stop that violence being depicted in video games altogether. Cue this tweet: Grand Theft Auto 5 is banned in stores for its violence against women. Now, this is in Australia, where Target and Kmart have responded to a Change.org pledge and pulled the latest incarnation of the R-rated equivalent game off the shelves. I mean, Chloe, is this something worth celebrating here? Is this the kind of thing that needs to happen in order to stop violence against women, or do you think that there is much more kind of complexity behind this?
Well, so to the point that that Rachel made earlier, this is a universal thing that happens, and it's going to happen whether or not we have Twitter, whether or not we have violent video games. This is part of an ecosystem, right? This is part of the water we swim in and the air that we breathe. And, you know, violence against women is something that we live with in so many different iterations every day. It happens, you know, it happens whether you're writing about video games. It happens in very real ways offline. What we know about the media is that it is a very powerful way to shape how people think and to reinforce how people already think. So whether or not it's something to celebrate, it's something to try. You know, I think it's something to experiment with and see if it makes a difference. I think it is dangerous to scapegoat video games and say that video games cause violence against women and that by restricting access to video games we can solve the problem. This has to be a multi-pronged attack.
Yeah, and actually, Alanah, I want to get your take on that, and then Katie, I'll come to you. Alanah, what do you think about that?
Well, see, I love Grand Theft Auto, so I have a different opinion there. I totally agree that I think that blaming video games is kind of lazy. It's just passing off the blame on something that there's absolutely no evidence that causes any kind of violence. But with Grand Theft Auto specifically, I feel like that petition is a little bit inaccurate in that it says that the game encourages you to be violent towards women when it doesn't do that at all, and it says that it's basically made a game out of beating up women when majority of who you're fighting in that game is men, very rarely women. It's just like an option that you can pretty much beat up a dog if you want to. So I feel like it's being used as a scapegoat, and I don't think that it's really necessary, but of course I don't feel like I'm authorized to comment on it because I haven't studied, you know, gender in media, and I haven't studied psychology, which I think are the important things here, but I don't think that it's really going to change anything for me as a whole. What I think should be happening with Grand Theft Auto is that parents shouldn't be buying it for their kids who are under 18 when it's an R18 game.
Oh, actually,
it even mentioned in the petition that it's raising boys to be sexist. You're like, well, hold up. Boys shouldn't be playing this game. It's not a game for boys. It's for men.
What do you think about that, Katie, and then Rachel?
I mean, I'm not really that comforted by the fact that you don't have to kill a woman on the game. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but, you know, any game that includes options of setting women on fire, having sex with them, paying for sex, and then getting your money back by killing them is... See,
that part's bad, yeah.
Yeah, that goes under the bad category. I think we can all agree. Yeah. It just really disturbs me that a game like that would exist and be successful. I don't want boys playing it. I don't want anyone playing it. I don't want a 90-year-old playing it. I don't know. I haven't thought sufficiently about the kind of legal ramifications of this, but this seems, I mean, there's nothing illegal about this, right? Because this is just a consumer-driven response from a private company. So
totally the retailer's choice.
Right, it is. So I think, like, I would love to see this game not in existence. I mean, I don't know if that's totally utopian, but I can't believe we're actually having to discuss the merits of a game where you're encouraged to, or at some points encouraged to, or have the option to, you know, pay a prostitute and then kill her to get the money. It's like, it's like I'm almost grateful that it's so overt, the sexism.
Yeah, Rachel, what do you think?
I know, I find it horrifying. I think that what's interesting about Grand Theft Auto, this newest version, one of the selling points of it is that now you can do it in the first person, so you can really see the perspective of yourself as you